Throughout history, there have been more than a few occasions where humanity nearly met its demise. Take the creation of the nuclear bomb as an example. Many people involved in its creation would often joke about the possibility of the blast creating a thermonuclear transformation of the atmosphere. Of course, these were only jokes, but the truth of the matter is that nobody knew just how powerful it would be, and in some instances, if it would even work. On the day of the first nuclear test, Harvard professor James Conant was so surprised by the scale and power of the blast that he actually thought something had gone horribly wrong and that he was witnessing the end of the world. As history has proven, that test did not mark the end of the world. It did, however, lead to a nuclear arms race that struck fear in families all over the planet. Thanks to this invention, only a select few countries had the power to truly end humanity. And, as you're about to learn, that moment nearly came to fruition in 1995, and very few people ever heard the story. Here are 5 times that humanity nearly went extinct. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already to never miss an upload, and also drop a like down below if you enjoy this video at any point. So the destructive power of nuclear weapons is well known by now. After World War II, scientists concluded that it would take somewhere between 10 and 100 nuclear warheads to put the entire human race to an end. This, of course, varies greatly depending on the size of the nuke and whether or not it was detonated atmospherically. The radiation caused by the nuclear explosion would make the air toxic and poisonous, knock out electronics, and possibly even put humanity into some sort of nuclear winter. It wouldn't be a pretty sight, and believe it or not, this is what nearly happened less than 30 years ago. Back in January of 1995, a team of American and Norwegian scientists launched a 4-stage rocket which was carrying scientific equipment. It was a harmless launch that was no doubt going to do a lot of good for the scientific community. During its flight, Russian military officials spotted the rocket on their radar and feared that it was a nuclear warhead headed straight for the capital. Within minutes, the signal made its way up the chain of commands to Russian President Boris Yeltsin, who even went as far as to activate the nuclear keys. Orders were given to prepare for war against the United States of America. Russian submarine commanders were told to ready up for possible nuclear retaliation. Soon after, military officials determined that the rocket was not heading towards Russia's mainland, and they did not retaliate, avoiding an all-out nuclear war by just a few minutes. Around 70,000 to 75,000 years ago, there was a volcanic eruption so powerful it very well may have changed the course of humanity. The Toba catastrophe theory states that modern human evolution was affected by a large, recent volcanic event. You see, within the last 3 to 5 million years after humans and other ape lineages diverged, the human lineage produced a variety of human species. Now, according to the theory, a massive, mega-colossal volcanic eruption occurred at the Toba caldera in Indonesia. This eruption likely reduced the global temperature by 3 to 3.5 degrees Celsius, possibly triggering an ice age. This enormous environmental change is believed by some to have created population bottlenecks within species, which accelerated differentiation of the isolated human populations. Basically, wiping out all other variations of humans except for the branch that became modern humans. This is truly a remarkable event, and one that very well could have completely wiped the human species off the planet. In October of 1347, when 12 ships from the Black Sea docked at the Sicilian port of Messina. When locals who were gathered on the docks boarded the ships, they were met with a terrifying surprise. Most of the people on board the ship were dead, and the few who were still alive were extremely ill and covered in black boils that oozed blood and pus. Upon discovering this, Sicilian officials immediately ordered the ships out of the harbor, but it was too late at this point. Over the course of the next 5 years, what became known as the Black Death would go on to kill millions of people in Europe alone, which was almost 1/3 of the continent's population. But Europe was definitely not the only continent affected by the Black Plague. Not long after impacting Messina, the disease spread to France and North Africa. From here, it also reached Rome and Florence, which at the time were 2 cities at the center of global trade routes. By 1348, the Black Death had infected Bordeaux, Lyon, Paris, and London. Back in those times, nobody knew how the disease was transmitted, and even worse, nobody knew how to treat or prevent it. Doctors would rely on dangerous and unsophisticated techniques such as bloodletting and boil lancing, and superstitious practices like burning certain herbs and bathing in rose water or vinegar to treat their patients. All of this uncertainty and misunderstanding led people to believe the Black Death was a kind of punishment from God, and by this logic, the only way to overcome the disease was to get his forgiveness. Some people believed that the only way to go about this was to purge their communities. Somewhere around 195,000 years ago, the world went through what is known as the Big Chill. Temperatures around the globe dropped in the winter and then also dropped in the summer. Glaciers grew in size and entire habitats were destroyed. This era is officially called Marine Isotope Stage 6 and unofficially called a glacial stage. Some believe that the human breeding population shrank down to only 600 people, and some of those pockets didn't even survive. In Africa, humans split up. This possibly happened intentionally as groups had to leave shrinking habitable areas. The groups of humans that did survive were both lucky and smart. Many of the survivors happened to settle beside the sea in what's now South Africa. This particular spot happened to be rich in plants that stored their energy in starchy tubers below the surface. The water in the area was somewhat warm as well and was enough to nourish shellfish, which people could eat to survive. The period of time was harsh, and vast majorities of the human population died. We put this last one on the list because it's not a time where millions of people lost their life. Rather, it's a time when many believed the outcome of this one science experiment could very well be the end of the world. If you don't understand what I mean, allow me to explain. The Atom Collider is the world's largest and most expensive scientific experiment ever conducted. It is a 17-mile-long underground tube which smashes atomic particles at a very high speed. The purpose is to solve the mysteries of the universe. At its launch, it was feared that this experiment would cause the end of the world. The thought by some scientists was that the experiment could create a black hole right here on Earth. A legal bid was even filed to stop the experiment as the potential outcome was still unknown. According to reports by some, miniature black holes could be created during the collision which could have the potential to dissolve the planet. Finally, after lots of scrutiny, Stephen Hawking intervened and deemed the experiment safe. Here's a brief look inside one of these Large Hadron Colliders. The world as we know it is full of dangerous things, but most do not threaten humanity as we know it. We as a species have survived some truly unthinkable disasters, and hopefully we don't have to survive any new disasters anytime soon. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, then make sure to leave some future video suggestions in the comments down below. Our favorites will be pinned at the top and featured in that video. With that said, thanks for watching, and we will catch you all in the next one.